Good evening, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you're at. My name is April Tribe Juke, and I am here with Hyacinth Wheeler-Fraser. And today she is coming live, if you can believe it, all the way from England. So, Hyacinth, what time is it over there?
So now it's about 1:30 in the morning.
30 in the morning. Oh my goodness, she is so dedicated, and this is a wonderful experience for me. I feel so honored and blessed that she has decided to sacrifice some sleep to arrive here today to show this incredible journey and story with all of us. So I'm here in Kyle, Texas, USA, and for us, it's 7:30 Central Time in the evening. So we're just getting started with our evening where she's well past the evening, way into the morning. And so again, I thank her so much for her sacrifice. Looks like people are starting to pop up here live, and this is a wonderful thing. So, Hyacinth, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so great to be here. Thank you so much, April. This is a great opportunity for me. And first of all, I am a believer. I'm a person of faith. I believe I'm a believer. And I would say that the first thing to say is that I was previously a former church pastor. I was in leadership in the church for many years, but I'm currently a licensed minister in the church, and that means I've been ordained, and so I'm able to conduct marriages, infant dedications, funerals, Holy Communion services, you name it. And so that's what I do currently. And also, I'm married for 38 years. I have two children. My career span over 40 years. 5 of those years were in private industry and 35 years in the National Health Service, where I worked as a teacher trainer, also in strategic leadership, which means that I taught strategic leadership to senior managers, that's consultant medical staff, and also senior nurses. So this is my second career, and in my second career, I am an author, I'm a well-being coach, and also I'm a teacher and a trainer, and also business consultant. But I focus mainly on those first three areas of author, well-being coach, and also teacher training.
Wonderful. That is a great understanding of some of the background that brings us forward into today. It looks like we have some people who are popping up here today. Miss Lori Jean, she says, "Hey, I'm driving, but I'm listening." Thank you, Lori. She's all the way over
Uh,
in California. So we've
wow,
really spanning the globe here today. Thank you, Lori, for listening. Wonderful. So
thank you.
let's go ahead and jump right on into the topic tonight. As you can see scrolling underneath here, it is how to go from our highs and lows of the journey from sickness and despair to healing, wellness, restoration, and light. So, Hyacinth, will you share with us in this journey what happened with you?
Okay, so can I start off with how why I wrote my book? All right, and
Please
so
do.
okay, all right. So I believe that we all have stories inside of us. And so for many years, my husband had encouraged me to write about my life. So I've always intended to write an autobiography. I'm not a famous person, nobody really knows me, but that was in my heart. And I knew that God had opened a door for me to be able to write. What actually propelled me forward in writing my stories when I when I listened to an amazing quote from the late Miles Monroe. And in it, he wrote a book called Understanding Your Potential. And most of us, he said, carry the books that they should have written with them to the grave. That was quite alarming. And that there was so much untapped potential in graveyards, absolutely incredible. So that was one of the things that propelled me into writing my story. But the inspiration in writing Journey to Wholeness came to a time when I became a new mother. My husband and I, we adopted two incredible, beautiful children. And they looked absolutely beautiful, stunning. It was almost like having twins because they came at the same time. They were ages 4 and 6 years old, but they themselves had been traumatized in their formative years, and they had emotional problems and challenges. And it was you wouldn't have known that. And we didn't really know from our local authority what was going on for them. We weren't told about, their years. We knew a little bit, but not to the extent that we knew after we adopted our children. And so they have, as I say, very incredible, challenging behaviours and emotional difficulties. And later on, they were diagnosed with ADHD plus other things. And so we had difficulty in challenging, when we challenged the local authority because they didn't give us all the information, neither did they put, the support and help that our children would need. It wasn't in place. It was quite amazing because their view was that, well, here's a lovely couple. This is who'll be able to provide a loving home for them, and that would be the end of the story. And that was far from the truth. So I really felt the importance of writing mainly to adoptive parents. Yes, we loved our children, but we needed far more than that. We needed support from our local authority, which was not forthcoming. And so we spent a couple of years fighting our corner and trying to get that support from them, which was very stressful, very difficult at the time. And so, yeah, it was a very hard time for us. But 2 years later, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And this what came out of the blue because basically I didn't have any symptoms other than feeling incredibly tired. This came about on my 49th birthday, but that in itself was a God moment because had I been diagnosed, usually around 50 plus years, it may have been a different story altogether. And so that part of my life became the focus of my book, although I do actually give at least 6 of the chapters or 6 steps of my book to the journey with my children. But the focus somehow has shifted, not shifted too much, but certainly have shifted from the original purpose of my book. And so I speak about what happened to me after I became a mom 2 years later. So we adopted our children in 2003 and the diagnosis came in 2005. And from that time onwards, my life became, a series of appointments, blood tests, CT scans, chemotherapy, more blood tests, more CT scans, and so forth. And so that's what I write about. And quite a few of us will know the actress called Angelina Jolie, who herself was diagnosed with breast cancer, but also she was diagnosed also with BRCA. I too was diagnosed with BRCA1, which is a gene mutation, genetic mutation. And so I found that out later on at that time. But going back to the reason why I wrote my story was that I followed up a contact when one of my sisters was listening to a radio program, and there was a Christian publisher who was asking for new authors, if you felt you had a book inside of you, to contact him. So I did. And when I contacted him, I actually sent in just the introduction of my book. And I was amazed when he turned around and said to me, do you know just how good a writer you really are? I was really shocked. I was surprised at that. However, I didn't actually go with him as the Christian publisher, but somehow God connected my journey to Author Academy Elite, who became my publisher. So that's where my journey started with AAE, which was again another incredible time. So I wrote my book through Journey to Wholeness. And my book has several different journeys. So it's not just, as I say, focusing on how I overcame cancer, but also it included my journey with our children and through their journeys. And if I may, I'd just like to really just to talk very quickly about what my book is about. And I just want to set the scene that in 2005, when I was given that breast cancer diagnosis, which came as a real shock to me. Then later on, when I had the second diagnosis, and then the third diagnosis, so 3 times, I remember sitting in the consultant's room having a discussion. And at the time, one of my sisters was with me. And then I was told at that point of my life that I would only live for 4 months, that I only had 4 months to live. And I remember turning around and saying to the consultant, but God has the final say. And I wrote these words. These are the words that came to me, which really gives an indication of the purpose of my book. And it starts off like this. Her own mortality flashed across her mind. How could this be? Why was this happening all over again, she thought. Her heart raced as she grappled with the words, there is no cure, echoing through her mind. Time stood still while the world carried on around her. She felt numb. Then turning to her God, she asked, Father, what are you saying? So Journey to Wholeness was born out of my own health journey when I was diagnosed with cancer 3 times. Time after time, I stood at the same crossroads, having to make the same life-changing decisions. But by the healing power of God, I was able to rise up and overcome against the odds. And so I call these my deja vu moments. My book focuses on women who are going through cancer and giving them hope in a God that is called Jehovah Rapha, God our healer. Traumatized by the early years experience, I share how my husband and I walked through the journey with our adopted children. I described how we fought for help from a system that had failed them. Written from a Christian perspective, I reveal how my setbacks had brought me into well-being and wholeness. And in the words of C.S. Lewis, hardships often prepares an ordinary person for an extraordinary journey.
Wow, very, very powerful. The fact that as we go through these journeys, it seems like the connection that we have with God really starts to open up, because who else do we have? There has to be something more that can bring us closer, that can give us hope, that can turn to us, just like you turned to the diagnostician and the counselor that were there saying, God has the final say. That takes great faith to do that, knowing and you're facing a mortality where, on paper or through blood work, it looks like 4 months are left, that's it. But really, it's where you believe and where you put your determination. And it looks like you've beaten that.
Absolutely. I think many times when people say that, they're survivors of cancer, I often say I'm not a survivor. I'm an overcomer. I'm a thriver, if you like. And so I've never, ever called or referred to myself as just a survivor. And I suppose, as you say, I've been a Christian for many years, but I think that the journey has taken me through the ups and downs of life, because life doesn't happen just in a vacuum. I still was juggling different roles as mother and as a student. I was studying, doing a master's degree. I was doing so many different things at the same time and still walking through the process of chemotherapy. I did have chemotherapy the first time, but it was the second time I had chemotherapy, and all that goes along with it, the side effects and all of that. I can remember specifically that I couldn't sleep. And so for the whole of 12 months, I literally was unable to sleep. That's how it impacted me, having chemotherapy. So, there's just such an awful lot to say in a very short time. And I made even though I'd worked for the NHS for 35 years, I'd gone through the chemotherapy as being the pharmaceutical services, but then God took me on a different route, and I found that the missing part, because with chemotherapy, the side effects and different things, that affected me, I knew something else was missing. Although I was being taken care of, physically, but emotionally and so forth, pharmaceutical or conventional medicine didn't support me. So Father God really took me on a journey. I ended up in Mexico, and I went to a hospital called Oasis of Hope, and there's quite a few Oasis of Hope in Mexico, but this particular one was integrative medicine. So integrative medicine is a combination of pharmaceutical medicine as well as holistic medicine. So it's an integrative approach for the well-being of the person. And I knew this was the missing link that would enable me, to come through the journey. And so this was around 2013, and then I think 2015 or so, that's when I had the third diagnosis and came through that. And so it's been an incredible time of learning and also listening to the heart of God and also experiencing some amazing God moments.
Wow. In those moments where you were directed to go to this place of this oasis of hope, it looks like other people, as they're listening, they feel the same thing. And I don't know if you know Betty, but Betty is an amazing
Yes, I know.
believer.
Betty.
Hi, Betty. She's an amazing believer and brings such hope and light to so many things that she touches. And it feels like your journey through all of this, as your Heavenly Father was directing you into places, how did He sustain you with finding? I mean, you found this new approach which integrated things, and how else did He support and sustain you?
Wow. I think as well that he showed me actually, I had a revelation of God's love in a deeper way than I'd ever known, being a Christian for all these years. And because I was listening to him, somehow we were connected through a friend of ours and then through another friend. And I remember my husband was already convinced that this was the way forward and that we should go to Mexico. I was incredibly poorly, very, very ill, because at that time the second diagnosis was to do with it wasn't the breast cancer, but it was, just trying to think of the name. It was a second diagnosis anyway of, can't think of the name anyway. But what had happened, I was in a wheelchair at this point, and it was ovarian cancer. And the fluid, because the fluid is called ascites, and because it can't get anywhere in the body, get out of the body, it builds up. So I looked as if I was about 6 months pregnant. And so my legs were very swollen. I was vomiting all the time. And I had about a 12-hour journey ahead of me, to fly from the UK to Mexico at the borders of California. And so my husband was already convinced that God was saying this was the way to go. And I remember saying, God, if this is the way to go, then you would have to provide for us. We knew that the actual treatment was going to cost us £21,000. That's probably nearly 30,000 US dollars, something like that at the time. And I said, well, we have no money to get there, Lord. We've got to find the money for our air flights and for other things as well. So you'd say around £26,000 was what we needed. And incredibly, this was a God thing again. I remember the week that we were supposed to be going, and at this point, nothing had come through. We're waiting on God. And then all of a sudden, my brother-in-law, that's my husband's brother, said that some money came from an insurance on the very day that we were hoping to fly, the very week that we were hoping to fly out to Mexico. So that was a God moment. And so I knew that this was in his plan, this was his will. And we went over there to Mexico for 3 weeks. And they were, yeah, they were just saying, you know, it was pretty severe. I was very, very ill, but I was able to endure the flight, and we were picked up at the airport. And we met this amazing Christian hospital. From the moment we walked in, we knew this was God's plan for us. And so we were there for 3 weeks, and I had some revolutionary treatment there, which was amazing. And, you know, they taught me as well about dietary, having the right diets. And one of the things I learned immediately was that cancer thrives on sugar. And, you know, immediately I changed my diet after that when we got home. And one of the things I learned was that, you know, that you cannot, you know, when you cannot stay in the same environment where you became sick. You have to make some changes. So we changed our diet. It even helped the children. It helped all of us as a family. And I began to get stronger and stronger and stronger with the help of the Oasis, and they've been amazing. I'm still their patient today because they still contact me as follow-up patient. So there's just so much more to this story. But to answer your questions is that you have to pursue God. And because you know who you are in him, and because you know he has this amazing love for you, it is a process, but you can never give up. There is hope. And I didn't give up. I could have given up, because when I was told, well, this is the end, you have 4 months to live, and that would be it. And I thank God, because those are the times that he steps in at the moments when we are on our last legs, as it were. It's amazing how he shows us and teaches us. He's taught me how I should wait on him, and how, you know, he will come through for us. And so it's about faith. It's about believing and trusting and being confident in him. Sometimes, you know, when we hear successful stories, we don't really seem to know and understand the processes that that person has to go through. One of the things I've learned about is that confidence isn't just about looking like we have it all together, but it's about trusting that our doubts and fears do not keep us from flourishing. And so, even though I hadn't attained, if you like, the wholeness that sometimes, you know, we think, well, that, you know, that's the success, but it's about flourishing in every area of our lives, and flourishing at the different times, even of walking through the sicknesses. You know, it's about what's happening on the inside of us. And I would sort of say that wholeness isn't just about attaining completeness, you know, getting it all together. But wholeness is actually what's going on the inside of us, despite our circumstances. So despite the fact that I was vomiting, and that I was sick, and that I was, you know, so very ill, and, you know, couldn't keep food down, and going through all these different treatments, but the point of the matter was that I had a hope. I expected that my father would step in. I knew that he wouldn't let me down, and I trusted him despite what the circumstances, the external circumstances looked like. I was never afraid that he would let me down. So yes, it's about faith and believing in God.
Excellent. In that belief in God, it has carried you into well beyond those 4 months. And through the book, it carries so many of us, right? As we read, if we have members or even ourselves have gone through the cancer journey, there is something that when you read another's journey and find what they found, we can add that to our life. We can add that to our circumstances. We can add that peace, and we become more whole. And that is such a beautiful way to express your journey. I'm so happy that you were able to meet with us today and share with us this story about such faith despite all of the situations, circumstances, illnesses, severity of everything. You never quit, and you discovered that God will never quit on you. And that is just what Lori says. It is inspiring. I agree. There's just something about when we keep holding forth and holding on, it just provides a beautiful way to know there's so much more than what we can possibly see. And when we trust him and when we push forward into that dark place, we find that foundation, we find the light, we find reason to continue forward. Even like your story at that last week, right before you desired to fly to Mexico, still no funding, and God provided. And I'm sure you didn't just sit back and were like, well, guess he'll do it. I'm sure there was ample prayer, fasting, requests for more prayer upon that behalf, probably even trying to secure different types of jobs and employment and whatever. So I believe that the Lord, as we ask and as we do our part in faith, and faith takes us into action, I know he can see. He sees and smiles upon what our faith and what our abilities are. And as we exercise that with him, he blesses us in ways that become magical. They become miracles. They become all of this and more. And so I just really thank you so much for sharing this incredible story with us. Lori says that this is a living miracle. And I agree. You are, Hyacinth, you are a living miracle. And with the book, to keep sharing, telling, and showing the stories so many of us can really push through. Thank you so much. This has been incredible.
Thank you. And I will add as well that, my story has taken me to amazing platforms as well. And so now I do a lot of, I support women who have cancer. I've had lots of referrals. I support people, women, again, sort of coaching them from their desire to lose weight to people who have been diagnosed. And so I support them spiritually as well, because I know that we are tripartites. So that means we're spirit, soul, and body. And so, medicine will go as far as supporting us physically, but also, spiritually, there is healing that God provides as well. And that is spiritual health. And so I remember the times when I fed my faith, with God's words and so forth. So I look at the whole person. I don't just look at, the physical aspect, the emotional aspect, but also the spiritual aspect. So a lot of my clients come from that background. They need support because they've been diagnosed. And so I help them with, with diets as well. So my book includes different diets and to support people who want to change their diets, for example, and have healthier sort of diets. And I've had to learn how to do that. And so I do a lot of juicing, for example, green vegetable juices that are nutrients, to support the body, immunity system, and so forth. So yes, I do a lot of work with people. So if people are interested in getting any support and help, I empower them with the information that I provide and walk that journey with them too. So my audience really primarily is to women that have been diagnosed with cancer.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that great information. And if anyone has any questions or wonderings about that, we will post that down below in our links and share everything. You can see across the scrolling piece here that her website is there. We will also link for her book that's sold on Amazon. And Lori says, different Lori, we have a house of Lori's tonight. Lori says that she loves your name, Hyacinth. It's her favorite flower. So that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. So if anyone else has any questions or anything they would like to ask Hyacinth, please ask now. Again, thank you so much for this beautiful evening and morning on your behalf. Thank you for being brave enough to wake up and share this very early morning over there in the UK. And we've been so blessed. I see the comments, I can see what people are saying, and this has been a wonderful evening. So thank you. Again, we will post everything down below, and have an enjoyable and incredible evening. We'll see everyone.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.